Hello everybody. So let's look at what if we make the cloud function not return, let's say, an exception, right? And also not return just a string. Let's say we return back a JSON object. So basically, let's say we're going to return back a JSON object name data.name, for example, and let's say we return back age is let's say 100, so something like that. So we return back a JSON, right? And so we return back a JSON that looks like this, right? I remove the exception stuff from here, right? That we did in the past example. And let's go back here, and I'm going to deploy. And here we are. I did already go ahead and deploy it because it takes a little bit of time. So I already went ahead and deployed, but let's try to deploy again. Let's see what happens. I didn't do any much changes, but anyhow, it's going to try to deploy right now. And okay, and let's go back here. So now what's going to happen is now the result that we are going to get back is not a string. See here, we are getting some data back. It's not a string. It's going to be a hash map. Now we can try and test and see if this is going to work. I told you I already deployed this. So if we run it and you click submit and we look at locate, you will see that it crashes. See here, it crashes. It tells you that Java util hash map cannot be cast as a string. So basically what you're getting back is not this. You're getting back is a hash map of, let's say, string. The key is a string and the value is an object. And that's your result. So basically it's this, and basically we remove this stuff from here. And now it's not going to be happy. It's going to be cast to this. So basically here it is. That's what we're getting back, right? That's the result that we're getting back. But the problem is that, you see, we are returning a result and we're expecting a string. You see here, because the result is a string. Now, we need to manipulate a little bit how this continue with functions. So basically, let's say we want to take that map that is received and we want to change it into a class, for example. Let's say, for example, let's call it my, for example, let's say user, or maybe person or something like that, person class, for example. And in the person has a name, so a string name and an integer age, for example. And let's add a constructor here. Constructor has both of them. Oops, Control Z, constructor that has both of them, both of the variables. Here it is. And similarly, we have the getter and setter for the name, and let's say the getter and setter for the age. And let's do the toString also. This is just cosmetic stuff that we're doing here. This is a person. So basically, let's say we want to return a person. So that's the result of the whole thing. So basically, I'm going to return the type is a person. So we go here, we say it's person. And similarly, we're going to return a person. The task is going to be a person task. Cool. We'll fix the stuff that is at the top a little bit. So basically what's going to happen is we get a hash map, and then from that hash map, we create a person. We can even create a constructor that receives the map and parses and so on, but I don't want to complicate things. So we'll say return a new person, and I will use the result dot get, and I know that is name, and then result dot get age, the age, right? So from the map, I'm just extracting a person, and now it's not happy because we have to do some casting here. So basically this one, we're gonna cast it to a string. All right, so basically, so a new person, this is a string. Right, and then this one is going to be an integer. Let's say if we do this, will it work? I don't know. Well, let's see. Okay, so basically we are returning a person. We're getting a hash map. See, we're getting back a hash map. And that hash map, we are creating a person out of it. And now the task is going to be a task that is going to receive a person. I'm going to go up here, and you could see that the onComplete listener needs to change this and this into person. Right now we're good. Now we can get the task, and I think things look a little bit better now. So now you're gonna get a person. So let's run it now. Again, let's recap a little bit. So basically, we're saying that it's the whatever then is going to return is going to be a person, right? But we're getting a hash map. We can parse it into a person, or you can go use the JSON library or whatever you want to use. You return a task that has data of type person. Now if we do locate, now we do submit, and boom, we get a person. The onComplete works. Why? Because this is what's being printed, and the person, the name of the person is Bob Smith, and the age is 100. So we look here, that's what we sent back here. We sent the name and the age is 100. So basically what we could do here, we could change it a little bit to make the name is, say, Alice Smith, for example, and we run it. And now when we submit, you could see that the name now is Alice Smith and the age is 100. Cool. So basically you could see how we could run such a system and how we could use it. It's very straightforward, and we are talking to the cloud function through the SDK. The beautiful thing about the cloud function through the SDK is that now this also offers you the ability to check authentication or not authentication. So basically, because of the context. So now when you look here, we can check to see if a user is authenticated or no. I could come here and say if context.auth, right? If there is a context.auth, this means this user is authenticated, else the user is not authenticated. So basically I could come here, if the user is authenticated, I could just say return this, for example, or else I'm going to say throw an exception. So I could do throw an exception if the user is not authenticated, something like that, Control S. And then basically what I could do is I need to figure out what's the error code for authenticated, so or not authenticated. So basically I can copy it from here, go here to the Firebase Cloud Functions, and you could say not authenticated. So it's one of these, unauthenticated. So the request does not have a valid authentication credentials operation. So we can do that here. And we could say, for example, user not authenticated, please log in. Right, so I'll do that. You always have to return. So basically I could go here, in that case I could return empty in that case here, because that will take care of this else state. So now if there is a user, we're going to do that, and you can even from the auth I can get the user ID. Can I say, for example, user ID is the context.auth.uid. That is the authenticated user ID, right? So let's do this here, deploy this function. Let's see if it's going to work, because there is a limit on how many times you can deploy per minute. I think it's working fine now. Good, so it's deploying. Now let's see, I'll add some quick things here. So of course, when I make this call for the first time, the user is not authenticated, right? So let me write a little bit of code here to authenticate somebody. So I'll just so that we could test both cases. Private Firebase auth mauth equals Firebase auth dot get instance, and now I'm going to log in somebody. So I'm going to say mauth dot sign in with email and password. This is the email a@a.com, and the password test123 dot add on complete listener, new on complete listener over here. So basically when the user comes in, now they're going to authenticate or not authenticate. And then if we want to log out somebody, auth dot log sign out. Just we'll need that in a little bit, but anyhow. So basically when I run this code, if that piece of code is there, it's going to authenticate somebody. Somebody's going to sign in, right? So I'm going to sign in as a@a.com. I already have that user. So if you look in my project, I have this user in the system. So we'll come back to it. Let's see, did it deploy? It's still trying to deploy. All right. So now let's see, to show you if I have that user in my project, Firebase demo. Authentication, and here it is. I have a@a.com, right? And this is the user ID. See the user ID, here it is. Now when I run this function should come back with basically it's gonna come back with the data.name, the whatever I sent it as a name. It's gonna come back with context.auth.uid and the age, you know. So once this runs, this is going to happen. So let's see what is going on here. You know, once, okay, perfect. So its deploy is completed. Now when I run the app, okay, and what is going to happen is I'm not logged in. There is no user logged in. When I click submit, you can see that I get an exception, right? And the exception says that user is not authenticated. Please log in. So let's assume that the user now logs in. So basically, how do they log in? They just, I will run this line. So assuming that the user logs in, right? Run it again, right? So now I'm assuming that the login, see here, the listener to token, blah, blah, blah. So I'm using that the user has logged in, right? Now we click on submit, and now I'm getting, oh yeah, I'm getting person. See, the problem is that we didn't parse we didn't include the user ID in the parsing that we did here. So basically what I will do is let me put a breakpoint here, and I'll run this code again, right? And then you will see that the hash map will have the user ID, right? So we're here, okay, I click on submit, right? And then the result, which is has 3 entries, here it is. One of them is the user ID. See here, there is a UID, and that is the UID that the function itself returned, right? The callable function returns, and also to return a number and a name, right? So the age and the name here. All right. So that we demonstrated that how you could check to see if something is authenticated or no. It's straightforward. You just check to see if there is auth, then this is authenticated. If not, the user is not authenticated. All right. Please let me know if you have any questions.